Exactly 1 year ago, I showed off the LED ring mod for your Gamecube controller, and the reception was pretty awesome. This mod allows you to light up your control sticks so you can light them up while you play. Throughout the past several months, I have teased an on-off sensor for the LED rings, and in today's video, we're actually going to take a look at the final design as well as install it into this awesome custom painted Gamecube controller by Pucho Magic. So before we kick this off, let's talk about a quick nuance with this mod, which is that it's only compatible with PCBs that have this area of the board unpopulated. Now, I've only seen a couple instances of boards where this area is actually populated, and I believe it only applies to T1 or T2 boards. I've never come across a T3 board with this area populated. So here's an example where you see this area of the board has been populated on this T2 board, versus unpopulated on the T3 board we're about to mod. Just double check and make sure that you're going to be fully compatible before you do this mod. Okay, with that out of the way, let's take a look at this new kit. In this kit, you're going to find a central PCB, an on-off sensor, and 2 LED rings. The goal of this was to make the modification as simple as possible. And by simple, I mean I want it to be extremely easy for people to install, even those who might be a little bit uncomfortable with soldering. So the total solder points is down to 3, thanks to the sockets used to connect the LED rings to the actual touch sensor main central PCB itself. Now before we jump into it and install this, there's a couple things that we need to take care of up front. You're going to find 2 nubs on the controller PCB, one next to the thumbstick and one next to the silicone pad for the action buttons. We're going to take our flush cuts and cut both those nubs flush with the controller PCB. Okay, with that out of the way, we're going to line up these castellated holes on the main LED ring PCB with these 3 points on the controller board, which correspond to the R slider. I just want to point out that technically only 2 of these points are necessary, but the 3rd point is used as an additional anchoring point for further support. The other thing you want to do is keep in mind that you need to keep the 2 holes here next to the start button open. In other words, you don't want the LED ring PCB to cover it. And the reason why is because the front shell is ultimately going to end up interfacing there. Now, just use a bit of flux and go ahead and add flux to those 3 points. And I'm just going to use a little bit of no clean flux here. Next, I'm going to put a tiny bit of solder on my iron and just tack down some of the points here. Now, these aren't going to be our final joints, but this is just to tack down the board so it's sitting there in place, and we can go ahead and create our final solder joint. Okay, with the board soldered in, next I'd recommend doing a little bit of a test with a multimeter and just confirm that you don't have any shorts. To do this, just set your multimeter to continuity mode and test each pin to make sure you don't have a short. If you do, add some more flux to the area and reflow the affected joint, and the additional flux should help clear that right up. If you pass the multimeter test, the next step is to do an actual test by plugging the controller into your console and turning it on. And hopefully everything should work as it should by tapping the on-off sensor. Next, let's turn our attention to the left thumbstick, and let's go ahead and place the LED ring over top the left thumbstick, and we're going to go ahead and affix that left thumbstick to the actual controller PCB using just a little bit of hot glue. Now, before we leave this area, I just want to mention the touch sensor, which is going to live in this area right above the microcontroller. I'd recommend just putting down a little bit of Kapton tape, or if you don't have that, maybe some electrical tape, and insulate this entire area, and just to make sure that you don't have any shorting between the touch on-off sensor and the actual microcontroller or any other components in this general area. Next, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention over to the C-stick, and as you can kind of see here, the way that the unit is designed, it routes that C-stick LED ring very, very easily to the back of the board, and you should easily be able to connect it there. Now, the one thing you want to keep in mind is if you're using a T3 stick box, you want to make sure that you move the jumpers that are sitting on the front of the C-stick controller PCB to the back of the controller PCB. Flipping these jumpers around from the front of the C-stick PCB to the back of the C-stick PCB is pretty easy to do. Probably the easiest way to do this is just to desolder it with a little bit of desolder braid and turn them around and knit them flush. So with that, let's go ahead and do it right now. Okay, with that all the way, last step is to just get this thing installed, and it's no different than the left thumbstick. Slip it over the stick box. We're gonna use a little bit of hot glue to secure that down. And with all that, the mod is pretty much done. It's all installed, but this controller is pretty sweet. It would be a shame just to reassemble it. So what do you guys think? Should we deck this thing out?
I'm gonna say yes. Hell yes.
That was my thoughts exactly. So let's go ahead and get some custom buttons casted for this controller. This controller's got a really nice like orange and pearlescent effect to it with the really sweet like green and black color change Smash Bros logo. It looks awesome. So my thought is if we do a little bit of white to complement this controller, it should look really nice. Now let's get these resin buttons injected. If you're interested in knowing more about the resin casting process, make sure you check out the card in the upper right hand corner, as I've done a tutorial on it before. With those buttons complete, next we're going to move on to some paracord, and I think some white paracord should look really nice with those buttons. And if you want to check out more on paracording, make sure you check out the card in the upper right hand corner. And as long as we're doing some paracord, might as well install a removable cable mod too, because at this point, hey, why not? Pairing a removable cable mod with your paracord is a great combination because it makes paracording your cable so much easier. Next, it's time to make those T3 stick boxes feel good as new. So to do that, we're going to clean them real well and then add a little bit of this joystick butter to make them oh so smooth. Joystick butter is a synthetic lubricant that's specifically made to stop nylon and ABS wear in your controllers. Okay, with all that done, the only thing left to do is reassemble. And of course, slip those clear sticks on top of the thumbstick and the C-stick so we can let those LED rings shine through. Now that's what I'm talking about. This controller looks totally awesome. I'm really digging the pearlescent paint job on this, and pair that up with the nice white buttons and paracord, and of course the LED rings. It really pulls the complete package together. If you guys are interested in seeing more of Pucho Magic's work, I'm going to leave a link to his Twitter and Instagram in the description below. As for the LED rings, these kits aren't 100% done yet, but I'm working my way to completing this and probably will have them released in the next month or so. So let me know what you guys think about them in the comments below, and if you have any feedback, I'd be happy to take it. Anyway guys, let me know what you think about the kit in the comments section below, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give me a comment, a like, and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys for the next one here soon.